remember the time when you wanted to pay for something and you had all these QR stickers. It was quite crazy back then, trying to convince people like, what does QR payments mean? A lot of Southeast Asian online merchants would have people shopping, start a transaction, but not follow through. Drop-off rates were as high as 80%. So we tried to fix all this with just one click or a single authentication.
Do you think we are getting to a level where it's all figured out and really improving for customers?
All these players who emerged but didn't create real value died off. So now the dust has settled 5-6 years in. And now you see one QR code at the merchant. Natural attrition is happening, which is great. Only the market leaders, the companies that build the best products remain. I was in Argentina and I saw firsthand what it was like. People were moving from cash and then directly into stablecoin. It's crazy. I saw this grandpa go to a corner store, give him cash, and then he just sent him into his crypto wallet some USDC stablecoin, and then he staked it for savings. But I think these payments will continue to evolve.
Welcome to the Pulse Check podcast. I have Neo with me. Welcome on board.
Thank you.
Here in Singapore, in one of my travels to Singapore on a quarterly basis. And I'm actually very happy and to some extent also proud to catch up with you today, Neo. Because you've been with Synpulse many years ago. I just checked online. It's actually just over 10 years ago when you unfortunately left us.
Yeah.
And
also Synpulse before you were Synpulse.
Yeah, I mean, you joined in 13 and I was back then still in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And then I came to Singapore and we did some projects together.
Yeah.
And since then you've had a fantastic journey and I would love to spend, of course, time on this. But as you probably know, my first question is more a personal one.
Okay.
Leo, so what's something unique about you? Something that defines you?
I would say something unique and maybe really relevant to Synpulse is Synpulse got me running.
Interesting.
Yeah. I can't remember what the runs were like. After work we would go on runs. And then I realized the whole team was really passionate about running. And then I realized the leadership was next level crazy about running. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows Salomon and his background and your background. But yeah, like I took up running quite like half seriously then. And then, I got like really into running. I started doing half marathons. I picked up trail running as well.
Oh, wow.
Especially when I was in Hong Kong. Yeah, up the trails, I'll take the car up to Sai Kung, then I'll do that runs. But yeah, I thought interesting that Synpulse was like where it all started for me. I used to run casually, but then, running with you guys kind of got me really serious about it because everyone's like really competitive, right? So it got me like really running, looking at my timings, clocking my pace, my breathing, my heart rate. So yeah, that's something maybe interesting.
And I didn't know that you were running that much in Hong Kong and especially Sai Kung, because actually I moved to Sai Kung 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So next time you're in Hong Kong, please come and visit.
Yeah.
We can do a run together.
Yeah. I think before that you were on the island.
The island, Lantau
Yes.
Island.
Yeah.
For everyone listening from Singapore, so Hong Kong has a few islands, actually many islands indeed, and a lot of country parks. 2/3 of Hong Kong is country parks.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it.
Now in Singapore, I was running here on the green corridor, so it's a bit more difficult to find enough space in parks.
Yeah.
Well, I always love to be in Singapore, and Hong Kong has different weather as well. So now it's cool, while in Singapore it's always hot.
It's always like this. It's always
like
humid
this.
and hot. Yeah.
Yeah, so coming then also to your journey after Synpulse, and it's been a very interesting and also inspiring journey. So as you said, with running, I mean, you've basically taken also a endurance role while first of all going into fintech, then also going into probably big tech with Tencent, and even then also becoming an own entrepreneur, starting your own company as CEO, were running the company. So maybe let's start with your journey, explain a bit what you've gone through and also maybe what life lessons you've learned along the way.
Yeah, sure. So I started at Synpulse 2012 or 2013. I did 2 years at Synpulse. it was a really interesting time for me because I got to, for the first time, learn about technology because I was doing business and finance in school. So I never touched a line of code. I used to think that was pretty lame for people sitting in kind of like in the back office, like typing away at the computers. Of course, this was a different time. There was like the word fintech wasn't a word yet. Payments was really, really boring stuff that people didn't want to learn about. Today, I found out they teach payments 101 in school, which is crazy. And yeah, so that was the time, right? Framed it as that time, and I wanted to be in a professional role. I wanted to work at banks, and then Synpulse gave me that opportunity. But at the same time, also, a lot of my mentors and leaders at Synpulse also kind of forced me to think about technology differently. You know, I always was obsessing about like, I wanted to only do like the business side of consulting, right? Like I didn't want to touch like implementation projects, like tech advisory stuff. But in a way I was forced to, and I kind of look back and think it's kind of like when your mom told you like you should do this and then you don't do this, right? And then when you grow up, you look back and like, thank you, mom, for
Mom Synpulse, thank you for forcing you.
Thank you, Salomon, Eve, all these leaders back then, for their focus on tech and finance. So indirectly, that kind of set the ground for where I set out to do, right? I finished like about 2 years in Synpulse, worked on a bunch of projects, had this blend of, I guess, like technology and finance and business. And then I joined Lazada. Back then, Rocket Internet, they wanted to start a bunch of startups in Southeast Asia. That was when tech was kind of picking up. And they kind of seeded all these startups with their own money. And they came with like playbooks on how to set up the Amazons of Southeast Asia, the Ubers of Southeast Asia. They do clone all these mature and proven business models from developed markets. And the whole thesis was, let's implement this in emerging markets and be the first, and we'll win. And so I joined them, and then immediately they put me to work at Lazada, which was this back then e-commerce company, not too big, struggling at times. I remember times where we didn't really have the goods that we were selling, and some people had to literally go and buy TVs or electronics from the stores and make the delivery or the fulfillment because we didn't have what we listed. So that was very interesting times, like really scrappy, figuring out how to start a company from zero. And then Lazada was very quickly also realized that, looking at all their peers like Amazon, Alibaba, they all had these payment arms. So like Alibaba had Alipay, Amazon, eBay had like PayPal back then. And so they were like, we need to do it. We need to copy and replicate as fast as possible. And so that happened. So I was part of this like early team very quickly. We went in, formed a small team, and we started this BU or business unit, within Lazada called HelloPay. It was like to be the payments arm, the payment gateway, and eventually start like this digital wallet, similar to PayPal, Alipay. So long story short, I started in ops, did customer service. I was in Philippines. Yeah, basically like picking up the phones, answering people why their refunds weren't coming when they bought stuff and they refunded. Why people pay with cards and they didn't go through. So a lot of very like nitty-gritty stuff that forced me to figure out payments, because if you didn't understand it, you could not answer that question. So I had to go down and really to the basics of foundation level to figure out like what was payment, so I could tell these people why they couldn't get their money back and why it was only coming 5 days later. And we can tell people it makes for better customer service. So that was a good like a year building up the whole customer service team, and then evolved into risk and fraud, because that's why people also called in and then, hey, like my card was, maybe I paid for something I didn't pay for, right? So I started to understand risk and fraud side of things. And then because of that, I think that built a very solid kind of understanding of payments and how it worked, especially for cards and non-cards, because back then Lazada was also taking payments in a lot of countries where cards wasn't well penetrated. So people were paying with cash. People started paying with some digital wallets, but very few back then. And I moved on from that whole customer service. It was mature by then. I moved to Malaysia, built out the Malaysia HelloPay team. And then, the whole acquisition by Alibaba happened. And they came in, they were like, okay, love what you did. Alibaba will now be with Lazada, and then the payment guys, welcome to Ant Financial. There's this thing that we have. And it was this huge, I don't know what you call them back then. Like they were everything. They were like a bank, they were a wallet, they were in insurance, they were in investments, they were everything. There's like nothing like that in the world back then, right? And they had kind of pioneered this super app idea. So I joined them and kind of went over Southeast Asia to push out these QR payments. Of course, back then, I mean, now this is that everyone understands what it means to scan a QR code to pay. But back then, I was trying to tell banks like in Vietnam and like Malaysia, like what does it mean? Like how does that transfer happen on the back end? How do we switch it? Why is it safe? Why is it not magic? It was quite crazy back then trying to convince people like what does QR payments mean? Why Chinese tourists could come to Southeast Asia, pay with QR payments, and banks would still get their payments and the merchants would still get their settlements. But of course today, it's a different story. It's like everywhere. So that was fun. But after that, I came back. I joined Grab early days because they wanted to launch a wallet called GrabPay. I did that for them with an early team. I was launching GrabPay in 3 markets, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Similar go-to-market, regulators, licenses, early team, and go-to-market. Then I would move to different markets. So that was Grab. And then I left and I wanted to kind of pause the pretty hectic startup life because that was going on for quite a bit. So I went to Hong Kong, which is where we reconnected again. And I was at Tencent for 3 years in their corporate development team. They had a fintech division where we would support a lot of these companies where Tencent invested in. From a product and operational perspective, like they wanted to learn how we would do products in China and see how they could adapt it to their local markets. So companies like, PayMaya or Maya today, which is a huge bank in Philippines, new bank in Brazil today, also a giant company, and a few more, right? So that was my role then for the next 3 years. And that's when I went trail running quite a bit because of the weather and the trails. And after that, I thought that it was also COVID, and I thought I always had this itch that I wanted to start something. And I felt that, time was kind of right. Like the infrastructure was in place. Venture capital was coming into Southeast Asia. They wanted to fund businesses and entrepreneurs. So I took that leap of faith. I moved back to Singapore in the end of 2010. And together with an ex-colleague from Grab and a friend I just got introduced to, we started Arrow. So Arrow in short is the fastest way that consumers in Southeast Asia can check out. We tokenize their identity together with all the different forms of payment methods they pay with, and allow them to pay with just like a one click or a single authentication. Did that for 4 years. We raised from some pretty interesting venture capitalists. Learned a lot along the way, and the company was acquired last year by Pomelo. And the whole team joined Pomelo. I joined as CPO, and that's it. That was the whole journey so far.
Well, it's interesting because if you would look at your LinkedIn profile, it feels like you jumped quite frequently from smaller setups to big setups. But actually, listening to your story, it's been actually very nicely executed journey, almost like a planned journey, in a sense of increasing, of course, your experience in payment, specializing while also building your entrepreneurial experience up to the big step of becoming an entrepreneur, taking all the risks. As runners, we also know sometimes you need to take risks. And I'm sure you have had significant learnings along the way. Is there one thing you would do different if you look back?
At my career?
Yeah, overall.
Yeah, I would say maybe I would have started taking risks more early in my career. I think, actually I strongly believe, which is another thing, a passion of mine, is education. I think education has set up a lot of people in, I'm Singaporean, born and bred here, grew up went through the whole system. I think a lot of Singaporeans who are listening to this will understand. Like we went through the whole system, that education system. We're very good at kind of, I guess, creating a certain kind of workforce because we're supporting all these multinational companies. So to my own opinion is we're pretty risk averse. We try to optimize for less risk. So we take very structured paths to success. That's why a lot of, like even back then, I was like, I wanted to be in a professional services firm, right? I wanted to wear a suit and tie to work. I need to make this much money when I start because then I know in 2 years I'll make this and that, right? And so because I did a lot of short-term optimizations early on in my life, that I felt that maybe slowed me down a bit. And then when I, started to be more, I guess like calculated risk, you start to take more risk with your career, like, hey, why not do this role? Like, it sounds interesting. And then so much more opportunities, open up for me personally as well as professionally. I got to meet so many more people. I got to learn so much more. I strongly believe in non-linear career paths for career paths. So yeah, I think that's what I would tell myself back then. Like, take some risk. Don't be afraid to just like try your luck. It's okay. If you lose 1 year, and then now I realized it's 1 year in a, I guess, 30-year, 40-year career.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So it's nothing.
Yeah, you fully speak to also myself. Having started in Zurich, Switzerland, coming to Singapore, then Hong Kong, also explored different locations and different roles, while most of which I've done at Synpulse in the same company, but also very different roles. And I always felt that you have that entrepreneurial spirit. That's also why I tried to lure you back into Synpulse. Not successful, but I'm happy that I wasn't successful because you had such a fantastic journey. So congratulations, first of all. But what I would, of course, also for our audience be very interested in is really the knowledge and experience you had in payments in the area of digital finance, fintech, because it's been really the journey everyone has, as a consumer, gone through the past 10, 15 years, and you've been at the heart of the innovation.
Yeah.
And I've just came back recently from Shenzhen before I came to Singapore. In Shenzhen, of course, China, it's been a reality for a long time that you have to pay through the QR code, WeChat or Alipay and so on. And just after COVID, the first time I went back, I felt like I could still use cash, but there's just no way. They're just staring at me. What is cash, right? And they, of course, also have now digital renminbi, and it's really progressing. And maybe first, as you went into Arrow, what were the biggest pain points you saw, and why did you feel that you can address them? And were there others trying to do the same?
So the biggest pain point that we're trying to solve back then was, as I mentioned, that this fintech or tech ecosystem in the region in Southeast Asia kind of exploded. Mm-hmm. So there was so many new forms of ways to pay for consumers, right? And then there was like GrabPay, there was whatever pay, and then I don't know if you remember the time when you wanted to pay for something and you had all these QR stickers at the point of sales, and like, oh, which one has the better deal and what do I pay with? So it's exactly that problem that I guess in Singapore, but actually also across Southeast Asia, there's so many competing digital wallets. There were also the banks trying to launch their own payment methods. There were also non-digital wallet type of payment methods. You could pay like at 7-Eleven in some countries. And so like this explosion of payment methods meant that as a consumer, it became more, it's not that straightforward to pay. There's a choice. And then through that choice, all payment methods lead you down a different flow to authenticate and then finally settle to the merchant. But that end merchant who just wants to get his money has to struggle with like, oh my gosh, like someone wants to pay me, but what does he want to pay with? I don't know. So I'll give him everything. And then he chooses what he wants and he pays. And then I have to figure out, how to get the money back to me. But at the same time, because there's so many ways to pay, people don't follow through. It's the reason why, like for Visa, MasterCard, or Amex card, you put your card on file and then you don't have to key in that 16-digit number anymore. You get an OTP, your app notification, and you validate. So that's already really seamless. But for other payment methods, it's not. So drop-off rates were as high as like 80%. So a lot of Southeast Asian online merchants would have people shopping, start a transaction, but not follow through because, for example, like they did not receive their OTP. They entered the wrong address and there were returns. They couldn't find their address, so they thought that shipping wasn't supported. They couldn't go through the UX because, for example, the UX was built for like mobile, but they were on desktop, so they had to like zoom in, but like how do we zoom in on a desktop? So a lot of different questions. And then, I mean, I could go on, like sometimes they would see a QR code, then they were like, oh, I see a QR code on my phone, so how do I scan it?
Yeah.
And then they drop off. Like, so like Southeast Asian merchants start to face all these issues. So we tried to fix all this. Basically, the main problem was conversion rates. If I wanted to pay, I pay. There shouldn't be anything between the intention to the success, because why do you have something in between that stops this, right? I think this is something we don't think about, that we take for granted, because every time we pay in person, you just take out your phone, double tap, pay. You don't think that there would ever be a problem, right? But for online, it's a very different like place. So we want to bring that experience to online world. And so we are trying to build kind of like a online identity or token vault that would be able to, in a way, tokenize all these different forms of payment tied to your identity, and then allow you to, at any one merchant, just verify that I'm Salomon, I want to pay. And then we handle the difficult part about like authenticating that, confirming the transaction, and then pushing the money to the merchant. So that was the main problem we tried to solve.
Yeah, because I mean, you and I, we probably know quite well what it means when you travel all the time to different markets, and then you're in Thailand, you have to use Line and maybe pay through Line, then you're here with Grab, and in China, of course, with Alipay or WeChat through WeChat and so on. And I use all these apps, and of course the identity is not always updated on every app, and sometimes I also forgot to actually just upgrade the app or have a new phone and didn't manage to link the credit card and whatever. And sometimes just in Shenzhen now suddenly WeChat Pay didn't work anymore, and then I had to use Alipay. So I'm actually also happy to have different methods, because if one fails, then I have another one. Yeah. Then suddenly need to pay someone through WhatsApp, and then he sends me the QR code, and then, okay, did you send me now the Alipay or the WeChat or whatever, right? It still today feels that it's quite a mess, and you have to really understand all the different methods. And then comes FX currencies into play, right? How do I actually get the best FX rate with also different payments and paying in which currency and so on? So there's so many challenges. Now that you've seen all of it, and you've worked for two of the biggest tech companies, Alibaba and Tencent, it's like the Amazon in the US, as you said. Do you think we are getting to a level where it's all figured out and really improving for customers? And if not, what do you think would be the next level to go?
I think that we've figured it out, but more of all these players who emerged but didn't create real value, like died off. So now the dust has settled. It's like maybe 5-6 years in, and now you see one QR code, right, at the merchant. So I think like natural attrition is happening, which is great. So only like, I guess the main the market leaders or the companies that build the best products remain. So I think that's a good thing for the consumer. Whether they've got it figured out, I would say as long as you can pay, the merchant is able to accept the payment in their bank account or wherever they want, then I would say yes, that's figured out in a way. But there's a lot of optimizations that will continue to happen, right? Because payments is like this thing that has evolved over like centuries, right? People used to like start with barter trading. Like I give you this thing and you give me something in return. I would assess the value, and if it wasn't fair, then I wouldn't trade, or you need to give me 2 of what you have. Then it became like, oh, this is not a very efficient way. We need to accrue to a stored value, and then like currencies were established. You can give paper notes, everyone trusted that value because it was backed by a central body, which is like, I guess, a government or a central bank.
And back then, initially even backed by gold. But
Backed by
that's
gold.
long time ago.
Exactly. And then now by bonds, which are, But like, I think money is evolving, right? And so as the way people transact or the medium that they use to transact changes, then these firms who, let's say, have won, for example, like Ali and WeChat, have maybe won the payment wars, right? Grab is a big leader in Southeast Asia, but they also have the local champions. So maybe one or two in every market they've won. They've conquered like, okay, digital payments, QR payments, consumer to consumer, P2P is done. But then, when the form factor changes, can they adapt? Can they evolve, or will new companies rise up to disrupt them who disrupted the people before them? So I think that's still a question mark. And I think now what's picking up, what's mainstream now is, like crypto, stable coins, mainly stable coins, digital currencies. People are increasingly, let's say, choosing to pay that in certain regions. Then I see it happening all over again. Like I was telling you, I was in Latin America, I was in Argentina, right?
Yep.
And I saw like firsthand like what it was like that, people were moving from cash and then directly into like stable coins. It's crazy. Like I saw like this grandpa go to a corner store, give him cash, and then he just sent him into his crypto wallet some USDC stable coin. And then he staked it for savings.
Wow.
And then he will pay that later with a crypto-based debit card. So I think these payments will continue to evolve. New form factors will become more efficient. And then, it's up to the incumbents to adapt, or new players that come up to disrupt them. Yeah, and I think that will happen for I don't know, forever. This cycle just keeps happening.
Exactly. Maybe a side question on that in terms of stable coins and evolution, digital assets. And as we've been in South America, which markets do you feel are ahead in that area? And will probably move faster. So you feel South America is somewhat ahead?
Yeah, I can only, I guess, share from places I've been. I think we read a lot about all this. There's statistics, there's reports out there. So I won't talk about that. But just being there in Argentina, Buenos Aires, you see that there's this natural pressure to adopt like crypto or like stable coins because they have so much pain with their own like local currency. I spoke to this person. I think it's easy to say that, yes, inflationary pressures on their currency makes their currency, useless. So that's why they don't want it. But to hear and see it from people and what it means to them in their daily life was like pretty shocking. And then I could understand why they would move towards this. So I spoke to this person who basically was living in Venezuela, also very high inflation rate for different reasons. But back then he would buy cigarettes, right? So, but the store wouldn't let him buy more than 2 packs.
Wow.
Because tomorrow it's going to be more expensive. So he's going to lose out if he sells you more today. So he wants something, but he can't buy more of it. And then the merchant doesn't want to sell him, doesn't want to make that money because he has to account for his own issues when buying from suppliers, because then his own purchasing power lowers. So he needs to raise prices. And it's like, it's crazy. So it's like, you hear all these like real stories of what it means to these people. He was also saying there was this garbage collector, recycling man going around collecting trash, and the trash was notes.
I actually saw a picture of that, a very dramatic picture of Buenos Aires, the streets where there was so much just notes lying around because it was almost worthless.
The paper that was printed on was worth more.
Yeah.
And that's why the people collecting it for recycling purposes made more money recycling the paper than the actual notes themselves. So it's like, wow.
So that actually makes sense. So that's why going to stablecoin instead of the notes.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it's a very interesting one. I would love to deeper, but we're almost on time. Also due to currently trade wars and USD currently losing value, how really this also impacts development of stable coins. But I would Dove, to have one more questions more from a really personal entrepreneurial point of view. I mean, you've shared so much from your story, and thank you for this. But just coming back as this founder, navigating through all the challenges, including also regulations in payments. So it's a bit different than if you open your own coffee shop.
Yeah.
Of course, you have all certain regulations, but especially in finance, it's a tough one. If there's anything you can advise other fintech entrepreneurs, founders of how to navigate through that landscape.
You mean like navigate regulations?
I mean, as an example, or just in general challenges a founder has.
Yeah, I'd say it's very real, which is that if you are, I'll be very frank, like if you're like a first-time founder, you don't have that experience or that CV, regulators are not going to trust you. Like, I think it's a fact. Like, we tried as fresh-faced kids trying to start a company, was never entertained. With no traction, no business, no users, regulators won't entertain you. They might take you out for coffee, but that's it. But I guess you could understand their point of view, right? Like, why would they trust you with your license so that you could take money from people in their country and do something with this money? I guess I would understand their point of view. But I think for founders who have experience, you see a lot of these like experienced either first time or second time founders. They've worked decades in like banks or like other fintech firms or finance companies. They go out, they have their regulator relationship already, most probably. They have that. They understand the business. They know how to work the regulators. And they get licenses. So I think from my point of view, if you're an experienced founder who's had that kind of track record, then I think what I've seen from the market is they go to regulators, they build a business on the side, but then they get licenses, they consult, and they have it. But for first-time early founders building from day one, it's a long shot. So I always advise, take the route where you don't need regulatory involvement, build off regulated products. For example, there are a lot of companies that provide financial infrastructure. They do they have all the licenses. Then you build your products on top, and then you go get your licenses like later on when you have a business, right? And I think even Grab, like maybe a lot of people don't know this, but before we had a license, we were trying to figure out ways to do stored value. So we worked with a lot of licensed players to start GrabPay. But then, of course, today, Grab has all the licenses, right? They're a bank. They have the digital bank license in Singapore and some other countries. So I think that's I would say, a better playbook to follow, depending on what kind of founder you are.
Interesting, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and also your expertise in payments. It's really fascinating. I would love to talk more, but we are on time.
Okay.
So thank you, Neo, for joining us today, and let's go for a run in Sai Kung in Hong Kong next time.
Oh, that'd be nice. Thank you.
Thanks, Neo, and thank you all joining us on Pulse Check Podcast. You find us online. You find Neo for sure on LinkedIn. Reach out if you want to find out more. So up to the next one. Thank you.
Thanks.